Hello, I'm Rick Stivers. I'd like to welcome you to Young Martin's Reels. Today we're going to be working on this Ambassadeur 5000C. It's an Abu. It is made in Sweden. And the only thing I know of that's wrong with this one is missing one screw right here. And I'm going to see if by the time we get this done, if I don't have one of those. So anyway, what we're going to be doing, there's nothing wrong with this one as far as I know. It seems to work fine. When I got it, again, this was another one of those basket case reels. It was perfectly frozen. It didn't work at all. The handle wasn't firmly attached. It just kind of flopped around, and the drags didn't work. Well, now the drags work. Everything on this reel works. Everything's functional. But we're going to take it apart and service it so that somebody out there who has one of these knows how to do it. We're going to start off. Where's it at? With this right here, I believe it's 10 millimeter, and it is. We're going to take off the handle. And underneath here, we have a screw. I'm going to take this screw out. And then we're going to lift the handle up and off. It's got that out. There's our tensioner. Now notice that it goes in with the wings facing towards the drag adjuster. And now we're going to unscrew the drag adjuster. Underneath here, we've got this plastic collar, this tensioner, screw, a washer, and now we're ready to take off the side screw, or side plate. Slide that off. And now we can take the spool out. Now when you take the spool out, make sure that you don't lose these. Yep, it's because they fall off real easy. And there we go. And it goes, falls off. And the other one's probably about to fall off as well. Yep. So we're going to go ahead and let them both fall off for the moment and stay over there to the side. Now we're going to come over to this side, and we're going to remove the two screws that are still in. There should be three, but we're going to remove the two that there are here. That will allow this side plate to come off. And now, when you get to this point, there's really not much here left to take apart. If you feel the need to take this out, you can. If there's sand or anything underneath it, you can take this screw out. But there's really no need to. But since I tell you I'm going to take them all the way apart, that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll take that out. And let's go ahead and take our end cap off. And inside there, you will find, there we go, this copper plate, this tensioner that fits inside with the wings facing out, and the bearing. Okay, and if you look under here, there's actually an O-ring under there. I'm not going to take that off because I don't want to take a chance on breaking it, and I don't happen to have one. There they are. There's two of these. Now one of these has got a dent in the middle of it, and that's what the spool rides on. There we go. That's what the spool rides on, so it's going to be on top inside there. And those two will go in there, and they'll fit down inside that case. All right, we'll leave them over to the side for now. And this guy is completely disassembled and clean and ready to go back together. Now, when we get over here, this little metal plate here will slide off. See how it comes off? Okay, it slides out like so, and then out underneath like that. That takes that out. When that's out, this is ready to come out, except that you need to bring this over, and we're going to take that screw out so that we can remove the pawl. Okay, there's the cap. And there's the pawl in there. There it comes out. Put that over to the side. Now with that out, this assembly is going to lift out. With that out, the sleeve will come out. And your carriage assembly will come out. So now you've got all that over there ready to be cleaned up. Now I think it's vitally important to get these good and clean, okay? So scrub it up real nice. Make sure that there's no dirt or grit or anything else down inside there. Run yourself a cotton swab through this guy. Make sure it's nice and clean inside. Don't leave any dirt behind that can cause grief. There we go. Yeah, even though it's been cleaned out once, it was still pretty dirty inside, wasn't it? So, all right. Now, all that goes to the side. There's our frame assembly. All right. And that goes to this side. And the only thing that leaves left to take apart is going to be the bridge assembly for this side. So we've got 2 screws here that we can take out. Now that lifts off and out. Okay, we're going to set this to the side for just a moment. We're going to come back to it. Then we're going to do the same thing on this side that we did on the other side. We're going to take this off. There's our little metal plates. All right, this side's got 3 on this one. And let's go ahead and push out the bearing, like so. That leaves us the bearing and this cap right here. And the cap is what the end of that's going to ride on. All right. This side is now completely dismantled, and the only thing that leaves us is this assembly right here. Now, here's what we're going to find on this one. We can lift off the gear assembly. Make sure when you do that, that you also, at the same time that you're lifting off the gear, lift off the anti-reverse pawl right here. If you don't, you can bend it, and we don't want to bend it. Okay, once you've got it to there, let's go ahead and take this tensioner washer off. We're going to drop this sleeve out the bottom, and on there you will find that there is a hard drag washer on the bottom, and here is our anti-reverse dog. We're going to clean that, we're going to lubricate that and put it back on. In here, what you're going to see is one single drag washer. Be careful with it if you want to take it out. So that you don't break it, because I don't know that they're available anywhere. All right, there we go. Got it out. There's nothing in here that needs to be cleaned out on this one. And you've got this compression spring, which seems to be pressed in. I'm not going to force it out of there. We're going to leave it in there. All right. Now, I did have to do some scrubbing on the bottom of this to get it cleaned up when I did it before. And I'm still not totally satisfied with what I've got, so I'm going to do it one more time. And it's really not coming any cleaner. So that's going to be it. That's as clean as that's going to come. All right, that brings us to this. All right, what I have found is at this point, you can pop this up and that will lift our pinion gear up so you can remove it to inspect it. And then you can remove these springs, but that's all that gains you. It doesn't gain you access to anything, and every one of the jack plates and levers are riveted onto this plate. So none of it's going to do you any good to try to take it any further apart. Okay? Because none of this is going to come out. It's all riveted in place. That being the case, let's go ahead and let's see here. We're going to pop this back. We're going to have to push this side back and this side back. There we go. Then this side. There we go. And that resets it back to its configuration or position. This is its spool locked position right here. Okay, that will have the pinion gear down and locked into the end of the spool. So what we're going to want to do at this point is go ahead and lubricate this. I've cleaned it. I went through the other day and cleaned it up real good. Now this is where you have to decide, what do you want to put in here? Do you want to put grease in here or do you want to put oil? Well, I'm going to go with grease on this, and the reason being, for most of it anyway, and the reason being is there's no extra effort in the pushing of the thumb button, okay? There might be a little bit of drag in pushing down that thumb button, but it's not that winding thing that you end up with when you've got grease on the rotating parts. So this isn't the rotating part, so it shouldn't be an issue. Now, one thing I did do this week, some of you may have noticed last week that my paintbrush for my grease was looking pretty sad. So I went out and picked up some new paintbrushes and a new acid brush for cleaning and greasing. So I'm going to be using the wide one for large work and the small one for getting into teeny tiny spots that we need to get into. Let's see, where else can we go here? So when we put this grease in here, we want to put it to where when this slides, the grease is going to be underneath it. Same thing on this side over here. When we do that, this side's got to be able to slide. And then up under here, we want to make sure that we get grease, but we don't have to worry about that until after we've slid the jack plate forward underneath the yoke. When we slide it under the yoke, that edge right there is going to catch. And that's the place that's going to need grease more than anything else. All right, so let's start off by getting some grease in here. Okay. Now right here where this is sliding, it still needs a little bit more grease. I'll pull this out. There we go. Now we can get some grease in here. Right there where that's going to slide. And you really don't want to get it all over the springs. The springs don't need grease on them. If you get some on, it's not going to hurt it, but we're not looking to lubricate the springs. All right, there we go. That brings that back over where it belongs. Like so. All right, now we're going to do the same thing on this other side. We're going to lift this up. And it doesn't go very far, does it? So let's go ahead and put some out here where it's going to slide over top of it, and then it's just going to get it under there as it moves back and forth. There we go. All right, and let's put some grease up under here so that part will function and slide well. With that done, we should be able to trip this side like so, and then trip this side, and that should pop back out. That puts everything where it belongs and everything's sliding well. All right, now we're going to go back, and on the pivot points, we're going to put a little bit of oil just on the places where it pivots. Okay. And this spring here has got to rotate just slightly, so we're going to give it a little bit of lubrication because it has to rotate against itself. All right, now when we push this in, there we go. That lifts up the pinion gear, and we've inspected this pinion gear. Now we're going to go back and grease it. Now the cutout right here is what's going to mate up against our spool like that. So we want grease to be right on that very outside edge of that, just where those two have to meet each other. And now that's going to go down, put the cutout down, and we're ready to now trip this again. Once, twice. Okay. Now, if while you were working on all this, this little washer right here came off, make sure to get it back on there. It's a little gold washer, and it's vital to the operation of this. If that washer isn't on there, when you put this in, these little studs right here are going to grind on the bottom, and you don't want that. All right, so let's come back now. And on this one, you can choose to oil the shaft, or you can grease it. I'm going to go with oil because that's going to allow it to move a little freer. Okay, when we slip this on, this pinion gear's got to be over and out of the way. And at the same time, this guy has got to be on. Oh, let's see. So I want you to be able to see how this goes. Okay, this slips on and over like that, so it holds itself in place. Okay, just like that. Now when you slide this on, you have to bring it over and get the anti-reverse dog to meet up with this post over here, so it slides down. Now do not, I repeat, do not try to rotate this without putting your finger right here beside the anti-reverse dog. If you do, when you rotate it like this, it's going to push that right off of there, and you're going to have to reset it all over again. Okay, but that's how it works right there. When you rotate it, it pushes it over, and it'll be pushing against the wall over here. And then when you go to backpedal it, it pulls it in just like that. So we're going to leave that pulled in just like that. We are going to install this hard washer with a little bit of drag washer grease. Slide it down like that. Then we're going to reinstall our gear like so. And then comes our final drag washer. And this one doesn't look like it would do that much, does it? It's awful thin. So, but it is the main drag washer for this reel. So let's lubricate it good, like so. And let's set it back down inside the gear. And when you've got that done, you should be able to take this keyed tension washer and slide it back down in there, like so. All right. Now what's happening there, if you watch, it's pushing back up. That's because that spring that was inside that gear that we didn't want to take out, that's pushing back up on it. So we've got that installed in there. All right, before you put the side plate cover back on, make sure to come back and grease the gear. If you haven't figured it out yet, this is an edit because I forgot to grease this gear. So I had to come back, pull it back apart, and grease the gear so that we have a perfectly functioning reel. We don't want to send something out in the world that's not 100%. I'm going to bring this back around, set it back in place, like so. Line up the holes here for the 2 screws. Okay, make sure that our push button over here is inside like that. before you go tightening this down, or you won't be able to get the screws tight all the way. All right. And it still might want to pop out like this one's doing. See, this one here is going to pop out just a little bit. Well, when we go to install this back on the frame, we'll make sure to push that in just as we go to tighten those screws to pull it in the rest of the way. All right, now we have our bearing. We're going to lubricate this bearing and this bearing. And let's go ahead and spin them up a little bit, make sure that they're turning freely. Good. All right, we're going to drop that one in, like so. Then, on top of that is going to be this one. It goes in with the indentation side on the inside. Then, these 3 metal plates will go inside the cap. Now, if you wished for me to explain exactly why those 3 metal plates were used as shims in there instead of just making it the right size to begin with, I have no idea. You would think they would just make it right to begin with, but that's not the way it was made. Okay, there we go. That's in. We're going to come back, put a couple of drops of oil down the center to be in that bearing. And this side is together, except for these pieces right here. Now we're ready to reassemble this side. And the only thing you've got to do there is you're going to oil the shaft that the nylon gear fits on. Set the gear in place. Also make sure, of course, to inspect the gear good. This one's in good shape. At first I thought it was chewed out in the middle, but no, it's just got a dark stain in the middle. It's not chewed up. There we go. Flip this back down to this way. And this is where we're going to install this bearing. Remember, we're going to spin this one up, make sure it turns well, which it does. Slip that one inside. Then we're going to put this guy with the 2 wings on it. We're going to sit it down in there like so. So it's got its spring action. Now we've got these metal plates, again, copper plates. We're going to put the one that doesn't have the dent in the middle of it in first, and then we're going to put the second one in with the dent facing out so that it goes in over top of this, so that when our spool gets reinstalled, it's going to ride right in the middle of that. Now, put a few drops in there. Okay. Now we're ready to reassemble this part. We've lubricated, we've cleaned this to make sure everything was clean. Have all of our parts here. And this is going to go in. First, we're going to oil the worm gear. Then we're going to take the worm gear and insert it back inside the sleeve. There we go. And this is going to go in the large hole. You've got a large hole and a small hole. We're going to put it in on this large hole side, get it started with this door opening right here, facing down, and we're going to install the carrier on top of that. And if you don't want to have it in that slot up there, you don't have to necessarily right now, but it'll make it easier if you can get it in there now. Okay, bring this sleeve over and get it lined up right there. Push everything over. And if you've got it installed properly, this metal plate will now slide in here and slide back on there, locking that in place. With that done, we're ready Now, I didn't show you, but if you have not cleaned any dirt that's in this pawl out, you need to make sure to do that, because a lot of times it'll get up inside there and that will cause binding inside that. So make sure that this pawl is nice and clean. Let's go ahead and lubricate the sleeve in which it's going to slide into. And then we're going to put it in. And if you got great big fingers like me, it might be easier to do it this way. There we go. Now, gently slide it down. And as you slide it down, start to turn the wheel over here. And as you turn that wheel, it should engage. Once you've got it engaged good, push down on it a little bit firmly, not super hard yet. And then let's take this cap, set it back in place, and screw it down. Now, just as it starts to get tight, don't tighten it all the way, just make sure that it's still free-flowing. All right, like that. Once you've done that, and you get it to go all the way back and forth one full time, go ahead and snug it up the rest of the way, and now you've got it. With that done, this side is ready to go back on. And it's going to go on with the gear meeting up to this gear over here. So if you've got the gear right here where these gears are, then just line up the post to the nearest holes, and there you go. Everything lines up. I still need to find a screw, but for the moment, let's go ahead and do this. Now it's time to reinsert the spool back in. Okay, the only part that's going to need any lubrication is this gear right here. We're going to put a little bit of grease on it, not a lot, because it doesn't need much. It's going to be meshing up to that nylon gear. We're going to put a little bit of grease on it. Well, I like these new paintbrushes a lot better. It's much easier to do some detail work with it. There we go. And now we're going to come back, put a drop of oil on the shaft itself, and we're going to slide this spool down inside here, line it up in the bearing, and there we go. Okay, we're going to leave that sitting just like that, and then go ahead. At this time, it's time to go ahead and put our brakes back on. And be careful with them, especially that you don't lose them. But you also should put them on dry, and they should be clean, not oiled or greased or anything else. There. Okay, that's your brakes. With those installed, it's now time to go ahead and reinstall this side plate. I'm going to set that in place like so. Your button should be going up, and let's see, and this stud right here should be going in this center hole right here. Okay, put that in. Go ahead and start our screws back in. Make sure that arm or button is not trapped over here. Oh, we got a screw. I swear I tightened these all the way down. So something must not have been closed down all the way inside. There we go. At this point, we're going to go ahead and put this steel washer in. We're going to follow that up by this keyed tension washer. Followed up by this shim washer. And then finally, the plastic sleeve washer. And over top of that, we're going to screw down the drag. Then install the tension washer and the handle, followed up by this locking screw that holds the shaft and everything in. Finally goes in this cap. And now it still feels snug right now, okay? Much snugger than it was, but that's because we haven't loosened this back up. All right, there we go. And with the button, let's loosen it just a hair more. There we go. Nice and smooth. It needs this line taken off. Let's go ahead and test the drag. So far, it's pretty loose. Tightens up pretty good. There we go. Let's go ahead and run the line through it and see what it feels like trying to pull the line off of it. It's one thing to put your thumb on it and pull hard. It's another thing to actually see how the line feeds. Okay, it's nice and smooth. Can we tighten it down to where we can't pull it out? Yes, we can. All right. So that's a good drag. Back it off there a bit. There we go. And we're going to strip this line off of it. So we're not going to need that. Now this doesn't have a clicker. Anti-reverse is working beautifully. Button. Perfect. Disengages the spool. There you have the vintage. This is the old. This is the old black 5000C, and I'm going to pause for just a second and go see if I can find a screw for this. All right, luck was with me. I did manage to have the exact screw that I needed for this reel down there. And that's the benefit of having 40 years worth of my dad's spare parts laying around. All right, there you have it. The Ambassadeur 5000C, fully functional, ready to go out the door. If you like what you saw here today, please hit the like button. Let me explain what that's doing. The more people hit likes, the more this will actually go out there. And when people are searching, let's say they search for Ambassadeur 5000C. Well, right now, if they search just for Ambassadeur 5000C service, odds are pretty good. This is going to be like number 20 down the list or more. So if you'd like for people to be able to find my videos, please hit the like button so that it will be recommended more. So there you go. If you dislike it, that's okay. I don't mind that. Please let me know what you didn't like when you hit the dislike button. That's fine. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. We are now over 250. Well on our, we're heading towards 300 pretty quick, and that's fine. I know there are people out there who have hundreds of thousands and even millions of views. I don't care. I want people who need to know how to work on these particular reels to come and visit and see what we have to offer here. One thing I forgot to do, let's go ahead and put a drop of oil in each of these handles. Now they're spinning freely right now, but what happens is if you don't keep them properly oiled, as the years go on, the old grease and oil will build up inside there and it will plug them up, and you'll end up with one of them that's frozen and won't turn. All right, there you go. So for now, that's Rick Stivers with Young Martin's Reels, signing out.